Hey everyone, welcome back to Retro Dad Reviews, your place for gaming recommendations and playing games with the family. Now, I don't know about some of you, but there's something I miss about the days of gaming on the Xbox 360. We had a lot of choices to choose from, but the games that stood out to me the most involved co-op campaign progression with a buddy. Whether it was the Halo series or Gears of War, being able to join forces with a real person against the alien hordes of the galaxy felt so good to do together. It's like binging an amazing TV series together with a friend. You can always watch or play ahead on your own, but you're in this together with your friend, and you need to see through this adventure as a team. It's been a while since we've had a game capture that type of experience, and if you're looking to relive those memories, then you've come to the right place. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 was released in September, and while it seems like a game only for 40K fans, this game is able to capture the co-op magic of that Xbox 360 era in a balls to the wall, big action, big gun, and big enemy game. The general positivity for this game has been mostly predicated on this premise where gamers were happy to mow down hordes of aliens with their friends. Strapping yourself up with a bolt gun and a chainsword, there are hours of fun to have solo or with friends. Space Marine 2 has you taking the role of Titus, the main character from Space Marine 1, as he is reassigned to the Ultramarines and has to unravel the mysteries of a Tyranid invasion. For each mission, you are joined by two other Ultramarines, bots for your solo runs, or two friends who can fill in as a co-op role. Each level is action-packed with a balance of ranged gunfighting with melee hacking and slashing that truly makes you feel like a 7-foot scientifically engineered warrior of the future. By the end of your first hour of playing, you'll be joining in for support of the Emperor and joining the crusades against Xenos of all kind. And if you don't know what any of that means, that's okay. There's no reason to question the motivations or reasons behind all of the senseless killing you'll be embarking on, all because of one thing: the fun you'll be having with your friends. As the blood of Tyranids reign over you and the screams of the Imperial Army echo across the battlefield, you'll look into the virtual eyes of your friends that you're playing with and realize that gaming is great again. Now, this all sounds great from a certain perspective, but what happens when you're locked in with your buddies, headset on and ready to launch, and you get the inevitable call to change a diaper, to fix the broken cabinet door your kids were leaning on, or to go to your spouse's work friend's house where you'll only small talk about the weather and local traffic? While they are droning on about the new sewer lines being installed on Washington Street, visions of Imperial glory and slaughtering Tyranids will undoubtedly flood your mind, and you'll contemplate crapping your own pants in order to have an excuse to go home early.
Uh-oh!
Does this game hold its own as a solo game, or does it rely on co-op play for its fun? Are you going to be able to coordinate game time between you and your friends to get all of the co-op missions done? Is this an antiquated game genre that your kids will scoff at? And finally, is Space Marine 2 worth your time? Starting out with pausability, there are different ways that we have to tackle this question. At the simplest level, if you're playing Space Marine 2 solo, the game can be paused whenever you need to, and other than graphics and audio settings, there aren't any game features that need to be accessed here. Weapon loadouts are determined before you start the level and can be changed live as you progress. Experience points are applied at the end of the level and are only applicable for upgrading weapons and purchasing cosmetics within the main hub of the game. So when playing single player, pausing during the levels gives you the freedom to leave the game as long as you need to, and you can simply leave the game alone when you're in the hub world. Now when playing co-op or online, things obviously change. I'm sure we've all had to yell at our moms at least once in our life that it's an online game, I can't pause it, and hopefully your spouses understand that too. While the game can't be strictly paused like you can in single player mode, if you're playing co-op, you can always ask your buddies to wait for you to come back, or they can go on ahead if they feel they can complete the mission without your support. Experience points in this game only rely on the completion of a mission, and you only get a small bonus for enemy kills and mission performance. Now, progress will be halted if you need to all be on the elevator together or need to be in an activated area, so your buddies can't carry the torch all of the time. There is a multiplayer mode that you can play, and that is less forgiving if you need to pause the game. With game modes like Capture the Flag and Annihilation, the match is always going on. If you stop for any reason, that may be the cause for you losing the match. My advice for multiplayer is to just leave the team if you need to go do something else. The game will live fill open spots, so someone who can participate in the match will fill it instead of you just occupying a spot. It's always considerate to think of your gaming brethren. Can you put this game down for 2 weeks and come back to it? All in all, honestly not a hard game to get back into after a brief period away from it. The controls are simple enough to relearn on the fly. There are indicators for blockable and unblockable attacks, so you don't have to memorize enemy movesets, and the hub world clearly shows your next mission that you need to accomplish. Best of all, if you feel like the rust is heavy, Space Marine 2 has different difficulty options to choose from, so you can have a more enjoyable time playing the game if needed. All the levels are incredibly linear and can be completed in a single play session, so leaving the game outside of a main mission is very manageable. The biggest delta will probably come while playing the multiplayer modes, since you will be behind in level and skill. I don't think those of us who need to step away often are trying to keep up with multiplayer anyway. The story and other co-op modes are really where this game shines, and taking a break from the game won't hinder your progress for either mode. Do I need to pay attention to the story? I have a few ways to answer this question. First, I mostly play this game co-op with my friends, and found myself talking to them over cutscenes and plot points, and by the end of the game I wasn't really sure what was going on, but guess what? I was still having a bunch of fun all along the way. Now, if you want to pay attention to the story, the main story is told through scripted cutscenes with background lore explained through codecs, voice recordings found throughout each level. This is enough to keep you interested and involved with the main characters, but won't truly give you the full extent of the story. At the minimum, to expand upon this story, you will have to play Space Marine 1 to understand Titus's original mission and some characters that reappear throughout Space Marine 2. The Space Marine series is pretty self-contained in this regard, and you'll have a good understanding of the story and the related Warhammer 40K elements. Now, if you really want to understand this story, get ready to dive into about 30 years of lore. If you know anything about Warhammer 40K lore, it's that you'll never know everything about Warhammer 40K lore. Besides the main codices released alongside the tabletop game, there are hundreds of novels that expand on specific factions and lore elements, as well as hundreds of video games that add to the lore, and as far as I know, everything is considered canon. It's truly one of the biggest deep dives in an IP that you can attempt to learn, but with enough time and dedication, you'll come out of it reciting tales that will give your kids nightmares for years to come.
We're in contact with aliens.
Like what kind of shit?
Here's what's happening, because it's not just one group of aliens.
What's the different groups?
The big five.
Okay, tell me what's going on.
Let me begin. This is really, I'm telling you, Joe, this is a real deal.
We're listening to you.
Well, first off, elves is the main group.
Okay.
And they call them the elves. It's clockwork elves.
I don't think you're allowed to say that anymore.
There are bad things that look like elves that have horns when they show you who they really are.
Damn.
They're bad aliens.
I'm with you.
All that to say that paying attention to the story is not really necessary if you just want to have a good time spraying bullets and serving the Imperium. Should you let your kids play this game? Space Marine 2 is rated M for mature for genocidal alien slaughter, shoot first, ask questions later gameplay, and being the goat of grim dark themes. Although you won't find any sexual content or excessively strong language, Space Marine 2 turns the dial to 11 with the amount of violence and gore that you single-handedly instill upon the hordes of enemies in your way. Now, if you lead a more reserved life, then maybe all of this violence isn't right for you and your family. However, if you're one who can never be too prepared for the inevitable alien horde invasion, consider this the perfect training ground for you and your family. No hostile alien should go unchallenged, and that Xeno scum deserves to taste the wrath of your 5-year-old daughter and her stuffed dog Mr. Snuffykins.
I'm doing my part!
On a serious note, while Space Marine 2 does have great co-op, it does not feature local co-op, and it must be played online. So if everyone in your family wants to feel the power of the Ultramarines, you're going to have to fork out the money to buy a version for everyone to play with. Is this game worth the cost? Space Marine 2 is listed for $60, and I'm kind of torn over the price point. For one thing, if you want to play with people in your household, like I said before, you have to buy a copy for each of them and make sure that you have a PC or console for them to play on. $60 is pretty high to take on that option. Additionally, the main campaign is pretty short. From a gameplay perspective, I like this a lot because it allows more people to finish the game, but for how short it is, I think this game would have debuted at $40 or $50 had it been released during the last gen of consoles. The best way to get your money's worth out of this game is playing co-op to unlock weapons and upgrades for each of the Space Marine classes, and to stay put for future season updates and new operation missions which have been promised for 4 seasons already. For those of you just looking to play the main story though, I will hold off for a sale since you will burn through the main campaign pretty quickly. Do you need a guide to play this game? I think I've said it enough times, but the main missions and operation missions are completely linear and require little to no hand-holding at all. There are very few secrets in each level as well, being limited to the lore codices and special items that give you an instant upgrade point found in each operation level. I say just to look up where those typical locations are and play the rest of it on your own. Every mission can be revisited for gameplay or lore reasons, so there isn't anything that is considered missable that you would need a guide for. The enemies and bosses are simple to learn, but challenging enough to keep you engaged, so it's not just a blind shooter fest. Skill trees for each class are also not incredibly in-depth, but if you want to look up some advanced builds, then finding a guide for that may be helpful. Also, reading and researching which class would be fun for you is also helpful since it takes a good amount of missions to fully level them up before switching to another class to play as. Finally, did I beat the game? My duty to the Imperium will never falter, so this game has been finished, both the main missions and operation missions. Through and through, both sets of missions will take you about 6 to 8 hours, each for a total of 12 to 16 estimated hours of playtime for the complete Space Marine 2 story. Of course, that doesn't cover everything else you can do, like playing the bonus operation missions that come out with each season, and the multiplayer mode. Main campaign is very achievable to finish, and being able to change the difficulty at any point is also a plus for helping gamers in our position to beat the game. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 is available for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC, so the opportunity to save the galaxy from the Tyranid invasion is not limited by console. In conclusion, despite a current high price and limited local co-op, I still think Space Marine 2 is worth playing. The gameplay is simple and pure at its core, and harkens to a great era of gaming that seems to be left behind in the past. It's like watching small ball baseball or a successful power run in football. Once the bread and butter of the past, but so rare to see in the current era. And when you do see it now, and it's working, your chest puffs with pride and you say something dad-like, such as, "Now that's how you make a game." And if this is a game style your kids enjoy, then you get to take that trip down memory lane and show them how much fun playing Halo and Gears of War was. Thanks for sticking through to the end and watching the whole video. Leave a like and comment what your favorite class is to play in Space Marine 2. Let me know what games you're looking forward to in 2025 and what you thought of 2024. Hope to see you again for more reviews.